Well, here we are, my first All Rev'd Up show. And who do I get to interview? The most media-savvy priest in the entire Anglican Communion, Father Alberto Cutié, from the rector of St. Benedict's Church in Plantation, Florida, who's speaking to me from the home right now. But this coming weekend, Father Albert and his lovely wife, Ruhela, and their family are coming up to be our guests here in Westerly, Rhode Island, as our guest preacher. Father, it's a thrill to be with you on this program. For the people who don't know, you and I've coincidentally been Facebook friends for years.
That is true, yes.
And about 6 months ago, Father Sunil, who was the rector here, let me know in a conversation one day that he had arranged to have you come up and preach. And I thought, gee, that's pretty interesting. And then lo and behold, he up and resigns to take a position in the Diocese of East Michigan. And I end up being their interim rector after 2 retirements. So here we are. And it's just, I always say this, and people get sick and tired of hearing me say it, but there really is the Holy Spirit.
There really is. And I got to be honest with you. What I've discovered at this stage of my life, after almost 30 years of ordained ministry, I have discovered that not only is there a Holy Spirit, God surprises us all the time. And most of God's surprises they're often very good. Sometimes, obviously, we get bad news. That's part of life. But when we get good news, it really does excite you to know that there is a God Almighty in heaven, that He takes care of these things, and that the Holy Spirit at the end is in charge.
Exactly right. And I have always admired the way you have embraced this tool for ministry, this tool of the media for ministry. And I think that if I didn't have so many double chins, I would probably do it myself.
Well, let me tell you that I just got off the air on the radio. This is my desk here at the parish. Yeah. And oftentimes it's my studio. I don't drive to Miami. Miami's about, depending how you drive, 25 to 35 minutes south of here. Uh-huh. I live in Broward County, which is the center really of Southeast Florida. And it's really much more Anglo up here, less Hispanic. Uh-huh. Even though people think of me as like the Latino priest, I grew up here. I'm one of the few clergy persons that actually grew up in this area, in Miami, South Florida. A lot of our priests are imports from the north or from the south, from the Caribbean. I'm one of those people that I grew up here. I was born and raised in Southeast Florida. So what ends up happening is this is home for me. Yeah. But I realized traffic has changed. When I grew up in Miami, there were horses on the street not far from where I lived.
Amazing.
No more. So I don't drive down there that often. I drive down there maybe once a week and do the show from the studio. But I do a lot of my radio and TV work here from home. Sure. TV stuff does require me to drive a bit, not as far south as I do for the radio. But right now I'm on a hiatus from TV, so I'm just doing radio, and I do a full-time parish ministry as a rector of this church. I have wonderful retired clergy, like yourself, Father, who never really retired. I have 5 or 6 retired clergy here.
I'm very envious. When I came,
the best. Yeah, they are the best, and they often support my ministry.
Yeah, I mean, Christ Church Westerly has been blessed recently with the addition to the clergy staff of Father Alfred Zadig, and he is a very energetic 91, and you'll meet him this weekend when you come. He has a wonderful baritone voice that I try to practice and simulate, but I can't. But he is a wonderful addition. Christ Church Westerly has always been, in my mind, a multi-clergy parish. Oftentimes the luxury of having a full-time assistant. But I was told by the Bishop of Rhode Island recently that I am the only full-time interim rector in the entire diocese. There's just no clergy.
Right.
And the retired clergy, if you go up to the Cape in Massachusetts, there's a priest in every pew. That's not so true here. I have 3 retired clergy, 3 retired priests in the congregation, and a retired bishop.
Mm-hmm.
And the retired bishop is Bishop David Jocelyn, who was the rector here at Christ Church.
Wow.
And he's just wonderful, and he's been very supportive. He was rector here, then he went out to Minnesota to be a rector, and then he became bishop of, I think it's Western New York, and then he returned home to Westerly to retire. So he has been an amazing, wonderful resource for me. And he called me the other day. I want to tell you this. He said, "I apologize if you think I'm telling you what to do." And I said, "Don't you ever apologize for telling me what to do." I said, "You are my eyes and ears on the ground here." And he's just been great. So
that's awesome.
What's your parish? I notice is quite a racially mixed congregation.
Yes.
Is that typical of the parishes there?
St. Benedict's is a very special place. It was founded by a priest who later became a bishop. You may remember the name Bishop Bill Stevens. He was the Bishop of Fond du Lac.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Anglo-Catholic.
The second rector also became a bishop, Bishop Henderson, Dorsey Henderson.
Dorsey Henderson. I remember him. He was the pastor of St. Benedict's?
He was a rector here. He was first a curate with Bishop Stevens. Then became the rector, which is something that doesn't happen too often, but he did. This was a high Anglo-Catholic parish.
Yeah.
They used to call us Vatican West in the diocese. It's really the kind of parish, I think it's very devotional. It's very prayerful, very committed.
Yeah.
We have, before the pandemic, about 500 people coming to worship on Sundays.
Wow.
Now, after the pandemic, we're closer to 350, but it is building up again. We have a lot of cultural diversity. We have 54 countries. Listen to this.
I've seen that.
54 countries
That's
represented
amazing.
in our
That's
congregation.
amazing.
So most of my Anglo friends from the Northeast, including a few of my friends up there near you, will say things like, "Albert, the difference between your parish and mine is 53 countries."
Exactly. I mean,
so we have the entire Anglican Caribbean represented here.
I see.
Jamaica, the Bahamas, every Caribbean island. I'll get in trouble if I don't say them all. St. Vincent,
really?
Trinidad and Tobago. All of the big Anglican strongholds of the Caribbean are represented here. The great thing is people love their church. They love their church. They love their tradition. They love the hymns. They love the Eucharist. It's a beautiful, beautiful parish. I've been here almost 10 years.
Is that right?
I came from a mission church in Miami. My first Episcopal parish was in Biscayne Park, which is where our bishop lives now. That's where his residence is. But it is now a parish that was merged. It went from rags to riches. It was a parish. We had 28 people when I got there my first Sunday. When I left, there were 300.
Oh, my goodness.
So it had incredible growth. And it wasn't about me. It was about a wonderful team of leaders that brought the church together. We revamped the school, so there's a day school there now. It is a wonderful parish, and it was called Church of the Resurrection. It is now called Santa Cruz Resurrection, because the Holy Cross Fathers, which had founded Holy Cross in Miami, not far from the cathedral. And with the change in demographics and everything, we merged Holy Cross and Resurrection. So we have the whole Holy Week in one parish.
Wow.
The Cross and Resurrection. So it's a great church. And then when the rector of Holy Cross became the permanent rector there, and the rector here retired, Bishop Leo Frade sent me to be the priest in charge here, and then I was elected to be the rector, the permanent rector. And I'll tell you, I love it here.
Yeah,
I've been offered all kinds of jobs, some of them with fancy outfits, and I have said to the Lord, I love being a rector of a parish, and I think that being here, and I'm going to say this, modesty aside, I think I can help the wider Episcopal Church more by being the rector of this parish than maybe taking on other roles in the church, because I really do believe that we can model something and we can do things that are really have already, people have expressed interest in what we're doing here. Right. And just multicultural. We have 4 services on the weekend, 3 in English, 1 in Spanish. All the English services are very different. Saturday evening, dog-friendly service,
Yeah.
Kind of very laid back, right too. But a lot of the founders of the parish come out to that church, to that service. and they like, to support that service, and we love that they're here. And they've had it for many, many years. Dog-friendly service. My predecessor, Father Bob Deshays, started that, and people do bring their dogs. A lot of the elderly who live alone,
great idea,
love to bring their dogs. And people ask me, well, how do you deal with them? I said, the dogs behave better than the people. And the other thing, it's interesting, is that we have the Right One service at 8:00, which a lot of parishes I know have kind of given up on, but people want the Right One. We do the Right One. Yeah. And then we do Right Two. We have a beautiful choral Eucharist, which is our main service.
Yeah.
And then we've got a Spanish service that started, interestingly enough, not because I'm Latino or bilingual. It started because my vestry said to me, after years being here, during the pandemic, the bishop asked us to have an overflow service because, he didn't want people to be sitting on top of each other, which tends to happen at our 10:00. And so let's have an overflow service when you come back, out of precaution for people's health and well-being. Obviously, we were all masked up at the time and the whole thing. Yeah. And then we had the spacing, what do they call it? The social distancing.
Yeah.
And so we started this extra service, which was bilingual. And we just kind of did it to see, because people would ask us, what about a Spanish service? But we never thought we'd have that much interest. This is not Miami, it's Broward. But
yeah,
as it turns out, the Latino population has grown in our area to about 25% of the general population, which is pretty high for Broward County. But we do not have the typical Cuban crowd from Miami. I'm one of the few Cubans in the congregation. We've got
Is that
Colombia,
right?
Venezuela, Puerto Rico, Ecuador, some Cubans, yes, some Cubans.
Have a lot of
Peru.
Have a lot of the members of the Cuban community sort of acclimated toward the Episcopal Church, or they're still traditionally Roman Catholic?
Well, most Latinos in general, the 21 countries in Latin America, are very much Spanish colonies with a strong Roman Catholic background.
Yeah.
But the Episcopal Church really had a big place in Cuba before the Castro regime, before the communists came.
Uh-huh.
It had a prominent cathedral in downtown Havana, which later was destroyed, unfortunately, because it was gorgeous. It was like Christ Church, that kind of old, beautiful cathedral type looking church. And they went to a more modern one, which I've seen. It's in Havana. It's not the same thing. But we're not in the center of town anymore. But we are in a beautiful place. The Episcopal Church is thriving in Cuba. I must say that.
That's amazing.
That's a great job. Missionary work. It's tough, I'm sure, on the clergy there. But I got to be honest with you. The vibrancy of the Episcopal Church throughout, not just Cuba, but all of Latin America, is very much felt here. Because as people come from Puerto Rico, people come from Venezuela, people come from Argentina, different places, they already knew their church back home.
I see. Yeah.
So yes, we do get some traditional Episcopalians from those countries that were baptized Episcopalian, and we get many who made a transition either from the Roman Church or from other Protestant traditions.
We in New England are seeing a decline in some parishes and a rebirth in others. The diocese, I'm canonically resident in the Diocese of Connecticut, and we have just recently elected a fabulous new bishop who was a priest in Massachusetts. And before he came, we were every year at the convention, we were supposed to applaud and celebrate the merger of parishes that were closing. Well, I thought, why are we celebrating this? We should be celebrating a parish growing, and I think that there can be a wonderful resurgence of the church in the New England area. It's a tough area. It's the least religious observant area in the country.
Wow.
And Pew Research did a study a few years ago of each state, and they studied Roman Catholic population generally. It was after one of the later sexual misconduct or rape charges that a Catholic priest was getting. And they asked 3 questions of every person in these surveys in each state, and counted the people who said yes to 3 questions. Yes, I was born a Roman Catholic. Yes, I left the Catholic Church. And yes, I will never go back. And Connecticut has the highest per capita population of people who answer yes to all those 3 questions.
Oh.
So that's, to me, that's our mission field.
Yeah.
We're not asking people.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. I mean, when I
see it almost with every denomination, Father. I see the religious indifference on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
People are playing sports. Here, one of our problems is the weather.
Yeah.
It's almost always lovely out.
Right.
As far as the sun, and it's hot, but people, we only have 2 seasons here. That's what I look forward to when I get to Waverly. I'll see the seasons here.
Yeah.
It's hot and hotter. Those are our 2 seasons. But I can tell you on Sunday morning, I see baseball fields packed with people.
Oh, right.
I see soccer fields. I see all kinds of activities. My friends, the Jewish rabbis who are in the area, who often had their Hebrew or Sunday school, in the synagogues, did it on Sunday. Right. And they're saying they're having the same challenge. So I can tell you that I think we are going through a really difficult time post-pandemic of getting people back into the habit of Sunday mornings if they ever had it.
Right.
If we thought we were challenged before, the challenge now is even greater.
I agree.
And so I'm now, we're embarking. Actually, I shouldn't say that. We've already started a capital campaign for St. Benedict's, first one in 25 years. And we have a newer church. Our church was built, our new permanent church was built in 2003, consecrated by the bishop in 2003. So our last capital campaign was in the early 2000s, so almost 25 years ago. This capital campaign is addressing obviously everything we need now. We need to redo our parking lots to welcome people. The root system has destroyed our parking area. We need to redo our roofs. We'd like to enhance our organ. Our organ is the $2 million instrument, one of the best pipe organs in the southeastern United States. Came from Princeton University, by the way. Wow. And so we brought it. It was retrofitted to our church, but now we have to redo the leathers. We have to do a lot of that pipe, organ work.
Right.
So we're raising $1.5 million, and I'm very happy to say that even without announcing it, just shows you the generosity of our people. Without even announcing it very much, and without really getting the heavy work done, we've already collected 30%.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Which is awesome. So we're in that first 2 weeks of our campaign, and just with the core leadership of the parish, we've raised 30%. So now we've got to do the other 70. But one of the positions, by the way, one of the things that we'd like to do with this campaign has a pastoral component also. It's not just a maintenance thing. We'd like to hire a clergy or lay person that specializes in youth and young adult ministry.
Yeah.
Youth and family ministries, because I was a youth minister since a very early age, but I'm not at that stage anymore, Father. I don't even know what kids are thinking these days. But I run into my youth group kids now, and they have grandchildren. So, what I realize is that I need someone that did what I did 30 years ago. And I need someone that will fire up the troops to get our youth and our young adults back, because they're not at church. We had 3 youth groups before the pandemic. We had 3 youth groups. We had a middle school, high school, and young adults. Gone.
You know where they are?
Are gone.
You know where they are? Right here.
Yeah, I know.
They're right here. They're right here.
We all are.
Yeah, and I think that's the challenge. You look at some of the programming on some of the stuff that these young people look at, and they're in a different world, and they speak a different language. And I think that we can't just sit back and bemoan the fact that we have been bypassed by the culture. We have to figure out ways, and I think we continually do figure out ways to reach out and be welcoming to people who, somebody asked a question at a I don't know whether it was a survey or something. I'm big on all this stuff, but they asked one question: what if you had to describe your experience of Christian churches or parish churches? What would you say? What would the word be? And the word was judgmental.
Yeah, exactly. I've heard that too. I've heard that often.
And I think
I don't think people realize it. I don't think we in the Episcopal Church realize that it applies to all of us.
Right.
Because when Father and I go out into the supermarket and we're wearing our collar and people see us, they don't associate us with a denomination.
No.
They associate us with the institution, the religious institution. Yeah. And so they kind of box us all up. When there's bad news in the Roman Church about any sexual misconduct, it falls on us.
That's right.
When there's bad news in Methodism or in the Lutherans, or it kind of all falls on us, and everybody just bundles on us in together. I think we've seen a lot of progress in understanding those differences, but the fact is, most people just got turned off with religion and not precisely with their denomination or their church. And so it's important for us as we reach out to people that we be very sensitive. I've written a few books, but the one book that I wrote that people always talk to me about is Dilemma, which is the book that I wrote about my transition to the Episcopal Church. When I wrote the book, I was somewhat angry. I mean, I read it now and I think, gosh, I could have said that differently. But I was angry. I was angry about the way I was treated by the hierarchy during my transition. I was angry about the way that I was judged so harshly when I saw, so many pedophiles and others who had really done some horrible criminal things were treated with some kind of what I would say would be professional respect. Yeah, I wasn't afforded any of that because I was in love with a woman and I decided to become an Episcopalian. But I say that to you because sometimes what we got to do is, and I've felt it in my life, I have felt a sense of peace and healing, knowing that God called me, and I was very happy to be a Roman Catholic priest while I was. Yeah. And God called me again, and I'm very happy to be an Episcopal priest and to be an Episcopalian. And I always tell people, it's funny, you said something about the Anglican community. I say, I think I'm the happiest Episcopalian I know, but maybe the happiest Anglican, because I've had the opportunity to work throughout the communion and talk to people throughout the communion. And I think I appreciate all things Anglican in a way that maybe someone who was raised Episcopalian hasn't had an opportunity to. And as I speak to Episcopalians, I realize, we're not really good at knowing our own thing. The 16th century English Reformation, which is not the same as the rest of the Protestant Reformation. Right. The whole sacramental system within Anglicanism and what we say about Eucharist, the sacraments, what we say about even the prayer book. I'm surprised how many Anglicans don't know the Book of Common Prayer very well. And maybe because I came from another tradition, I embraced it in a very radical way. And so I do feel like I'm the happiest Episcopalian out there.
Well, I came into the church right after the new prayer book. We still call it the new prayer book.
That's right. 79.
Came out in 79, And so when I became an Episcopalian, I was puzzled. Why are so many people angry? I love this prayer book. I mean, I did, when I was ordained, Father Bob Taylor preached in my ordination in Greenwich, Connecticut, probably the most affluent town in America, where I was assistant to the rector. And I stood up and he preached, and he said, to tell you a little bit about Father Dinoto, he is a prayer book fundamentalist. Because I love the prayer book.
Now, is that the same Bob Taylor that served here in Tequesta?
No, there isn't. Bob Taylor has always been in Connecticut. He was
we had a Father Bob Taylor here.
I think he came up to Connecticut one time to preach or to speak. But my Bob Taylor has been a wonderful mentor to me, and he's retired now. But I think Christ Church is looking ahead now as interim. And the bishop has been wonderful, Bishop Nicely. He was here last week with the vestry, and he painted a fairly discouraging picture of the possibility of searching for a new rector, because there are a paucity of clergy. I mean, parishes that have vacancies years ago used to get 20 and 30 candidates. Now they're getting 4 and 5. Yeah. And so they're really doing a good job of discernment, I think, and they're at the very early stages of it, which by coincidence you'll be here for at the beginning, And
I think a good rector, or I should say, the search for a good rector is a lot like an engagement.
That's right.
because you get to know the person. I often tell my couples, you got to get to know each other at least winter, spring, summer, and fall. You got to get to know each other, a little bit before you jump into this engagement and marriage thing.
Right.
And I think that happens too with rectors. I would like for us to do a better job. Now we have social media, so you can look up the person's sermons. You can kind of get to know them. But I think we need to do a better job,
right.
not just in rector searches, in bishop searches. We need to do a better job in getting to know the person pastorally and theologically. Who are they? Because, the way we are as Episcopalians, we're so unique and so diverse. So you want to get to know the candidate. You want to get to know who they are. You want to get to know their theology, what they're passionate about. I often see places where, they kind of went through the process. They even maybe paid consultants to go through the process, but they didn't really do the process. And I think a lot of the process is you got to pray, you got to discern. It requires a little bit of knee work, get on your knees.
Yeah.
Pray, because you want to pray about the decisions you make as a community. And I think the model is changing. And I don't know if that's happening up your way, but it's happening a lot here. And it's happening throughout the church, I think, where there may be a priest in charge for a while and people get to know this priest in charge. And then, there may be the possibility of extending the contract another year or saying, we really like this person. We'd like to call this person to be our rector.
Yeah. I
think that's very healthy because you get to know the person. And that's been one of I would say, the strengths and the weaknesses in our church. It's our process of searching for people and trying to get them to fit the job and the culture of the place.
Right.
I'm all for getting to a place and getting to know the culture of the parish.
Yeah.
And knowing the people and understanding their culture. When I first came here, a lot of my clergy friends says, "Oh, you can't do what they did there in the past. They did this, and this." And I'm like, "Oh, no. Believe me, we're going to do what they did in the past." I mean, this has been a growing, booming parish for a long time. Why would I come and change it?
Well, you didn't come to rescue Saint Benedict's.
No, that's right. That's right. And so it's a blessing to be able to be at a place, where obviously things are modified, things are adjusted and changed all the time. That's part of life.
Yeah.
But I think that we've got to listen. Clergy have to have a real desire to listen to your leadership, listen to your heads of ministries.
Right.
Yes, we offer direction, but I think that I always tell my people that just because I wear this, it doesn't make me the only leader in this parish.
Well, that's right.
I think it's baptism that makes us leaders in our parishes. And baptized are called to leadership. And I will be, I say we are a community of leaders, and we share that leadership together. That's
right. It's a responsibility that with collaboration makes success happen.
I agree.
And the tricky part of that is maintaining I don't want to call it hierarchical, but I mean, we are a hierarchical church, but good hierarchy doesn't become an obstacle. Good hierarchy allows people to collaborate with them and to contribute and to discern and to take responsibility. I always use the term of people in the parish. Our job is to develop a sense of them wanting to have skin in the game.
Yes.
They got to have skin in the game. It can't just be entertainment on weekends. We've had a rich music ministry here for many, many years. Our organist and choir master, George Kent, is superb. He's been here since 1956.
Wow.
That's a fact. He was a young man when he came here, and he has been here through his entire career. And he had a little period of illness some years ago, but he's in his upper 80s. And we have a tracker organ that would knock your socks off, and a choir and music program that has been renowned for years and years and years. And of course, things have changed because there used to be at least 15 or 20 young voices in the choir. There are no kids in the choir now. And that's something that is a challenge for us.
It is.
And
it's a challenge for all of us right now.
Yeah, exactly. And there was an article in Living Church several months ago, and it was a friend of mine, Father John McGinn from Massachusetts, pointed it out to me. I hadn't read it. The title was Stay Boomer. In other words, basically, it was appealing to people like me to say, don't retire. We need your expertise. We need your leadership. We need your experience. And I think, a lot of retirements, you look at the list in Living Church, and the number of retirements is daunting. And the number of seminaries is shrinking. The number of the population. Now, when I went to General Seminary in the 90s, I had 35 members of my class. That was just one class. Now they have 20 people in the entire seminary. And of course, General has been absorbed by VTS, EDS in Boston shut down. It's a different world. And we're going to need to find out, we already are. They're exploring and putting in place new ways to raise up people for ordination. I think there's a great future for this church. I think we are perfectly positioned in these times of transition, especially after being in post-pandemic America. People did find different ways to spend their life and the different paths on Sunday. They reshaped their whole way of living, and now it's time to reclaim that and make it understandable. And we have to be. I'm speaking to the choir here, but if what we do in our ministry and how we witness as Episcopalians, if it doesn't add to the value of your life and it doesn't change your life, then we're doing something that needs to change.
One of the things, Father, that I see is, it's funny you would say that, because one of my parishioners said to me, Father, I'll come back when you have a recliner and a cup of coffee inside the church for me.
Right. And we have.
In other words, I think a significant number of people developed new habits during the pandemic.
Right.
And that lockup did more damage to the church, I think, than to any other institution, because when you go to school, you're expected to be there.
That's right.
When you go to the club or whatever, sports activity, you're expected to be there. But when it comes to church, you have the option.
Yeah.
And I think that restaurants have seen a change in the way their numbers were. I mean, I know I go to nearby restaurants now sometimes that used to be packed, and I don't see that many people in there anymore. I'm sure the economy has something to do with that also. But when you look at the people, the activities that have to do with an option, on Saturday or Sunday, and things that have to do with worship, those things really changed post-pandemic. So now what do we do? I mean, that's one of the things that I'm really eager to speak about when I'm there with you all in person.
Good.
The challenges of the 21st century church, and also the lights, the bright lights that I see, because there are things that are happening that are very, very positive throughout the Episcopal Church. And I think that we spend a lot of time navel gazing.
Oh, yeah.
And in the pity party. That's right. God, we're doing so. Oh, look at the numbers. If you just look at the numbers, you're not looking at the whole picture.
No, ministry is not a numbers game.
Yeah.
And I think we get so caught up in that, yes, they're important, but we can't be governed by every dip and twiddle of every statistic that gets thrown at us. Because, I always tell people, look, Jesus started with 12 people.
That's right.
And yes, it's wonderful to have a really, healthy, vibrant attendance, but we have to be willing to witness to the gospel with whoever shows up, and not clergy do this all the time. Sit up there and we think, no, who's not here this week? Oh, they're not here this week. Oh, I haven't seen them in a while. Instead of focusing on the people that are there worshiping together, we do that. I do that. And I think that the future is bright, but we've got to change our focus a little bit. And that's hard to do. It's like turning the Titanic. You don't make a U-turn with the Titanic by turning the wheel, And I think we've had good leadership. Michael Curry has been a gift from God.
Oh.
God bless him. I hope his health increases or improves. I know he's been quite sick.
Yes. The good report is that the mass that was removed was benign. It wasn't cancerous.
Oh, that's good news.
And so they have him in ICU for a few more days, but it's just a precautionary stay because they're worried about infection and things like that.
Yeah.
But the big concern, thank God, was removed when they found that this was a benign thing.
Yeah.
I also think that he's in the final months.
That's right.
His leadership with us, because next convention, next summer, there will be an election for a new presiding bishop.
Yeah.
And that'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah.
We had a female presiding bishop. We've had our first African American presiding bishop. It'll be interesting to see if we get our first Latino or Latina, presiding bishop.
Right.
And I do think that there's a need for us to continue not just talking about diversity, actually doing that work. And that it requires, people stepping up to the plate and saying, yes, we're willing to do this. And
well, that's right. And I think my view has always been, whether it's getting a new rector or a new bishop or a new presiding bishop, is we want the best person.
That's right.
I don't care if they're purple.
That's right.
And I think, sometimes being intentionally governed by, the president, the current president said, before he ever even looked at the list, he said, I'm going to nominate a black woman. Well, I mean, that's okay, but you want to nominate the best judge. That's the bottom line. And he picked the best judge, who happens to be black and a woman. But I think we can get caught up in that trap of saying we've got to have this, we've got to have that.
Yeah.
And that's not.
I agree with you. And I think that part of our issue today is we're trying so hard, to check the boxes.
Yeah.
That we forget the most qualified person is what matters. I agree with you. That's the work of the sermon. That's the work of the Spirit.
That's right.
I think that that's what you all are up against, I'm sure, in this search for a new rector. And I pray that that Christ Church will be blessed with a rector that loves God and loves people, because those are the two things I think a parish priest needs to have.
That's right.
The love of God and the love of people. I've met many academic type parish priests, and they usually lock themselves up and are not very effective. But I think a priest that loves people and loves the community is very important. I have a priest friend actually that both of us know. When he came to Miami Beach, it took him 3 weeks to get to know everyone in the city. Everybody knew him in town. Everybody. Didn't matter denomination, faith, tradition. They all knew this priest.
Right.
Why? He went out to every meeting, went out to everything. They all knew him, loved him. Another Rhode Island native, by the way.
Yeah.
But it was great because I said to him, that's exactly what that church needs.
That's right.
It may not be the biggest church in the diocese, a small congregation. But when they know that the priest of that congregation is out in the community,
that's right,
is doing stuff with the scouts, and is doing stuff with the Kiwanis, and is doing stuff with the commissioners and the mayors and all those activities that happen in every city and every town in America.
Or even
out and we're visible, we bring them in. People come.
Even if you show up at the Peace and Justice Commission or stand with people who are, we need to embrace people who are living the gospel in the community and being a welcome mat in many ways. George Herbert, the old English, his whole idea was that, my parish is in Christ Church. My parish is Westerly, Rhode Island, or Stonington, Connecticut. See, we are like a quarter mile from the Connecticut border. So we have lots of parishioners in Connecticut, a lot of parishioners from Rhode Island, not from Westerly. That's quite a diverse geographically, anyway. I think as far as we have several members who are persons of color, but that's sort of representative of the population in general. Right here,
How many minutes is part of Connecticut from Westerly?
Oh, I could walk to Connecticut from here. Literally. I mean, we're on Elm Street that goes to Broad Street. If you stay on Broad Street, you're on the bridge.
Wow.
And that's where I grew up, in Pawcatuck, Connecticut, which is part of the town of Stonington. You may have heard of Mystic Seaport.
Yes.
Well, that was part of my hometown. And so we are very close to the border. So even when I grew up in Pawcatuck, Connecticut, part of the town of Stonington, our post office was Westerly, Rhode Island. We didn't even have our own zip code for 20 years. So it's an interesting place. We are in the southwestern part of Rhode Island, and we're almost like in another diocese almost. Bishop Nisley has actually established an office here at Christ Church, and occasionally comes but like every diocese, the parishes are shrinking, and clergy numbers are not there. But I'm convinced that places like Christ Church, we're growing. I volunteered at a fundraiser that the parish had in August at a big county fair near here, and they were going to decide to sell. They're going to sell grilled cheese, and I thought, who the hell wants to buy a grilled cheese sandwich at a county fair? Well, they sold 3,000 grilled cheese sandwiches. But my point is, when I went into the booth, there were like 6 parishioners who were volunteers, and I didn't know any of them. Of course, I just started here.
That's funny.
And I do know a lot of people from years ago, but I started talking to them, and none of them have been at Christ Church longer than 5 or 6 years. So we're continuing to grow, and I think that Sunil did a great job of reaching out to the community and being a presence here. Most of the rectors that have been here have made their mark, but I think that what we need to do as Episcopalians is to stop being bashful about who we are. And I think sometimes even our kids in confirmation class, when you start talking to them about what it means to be an Episcopalian, I noticed on one of your websites that said that the Episcopal Church is like a bridge church, and I even have that message in my Sunday bulletin every week, that we are via media, the middle way between Roman Catholicism and mainline Protestantism, and I think that we are perfectly positioned in a time where people are looking for something. They don't know what it is quite, but they know that there's something bigger than them that's going to enrich their lives.
Amen.
And that's what we've got to do. So this has been fun. I'm a rookie at this, and talking to you, it's funny, but it's coincidental, I guess, that my first foray into broadcasting happens to be with the guy who was on TV, the guy who was on TV Guide.
Oh my God, I have that here somewhere. Hold on.
I bet you do.
You know, it was the first Spanish cover of the TV Guide.
Is that right?
Oh my God, it's here.
Oh, I want to see it. Show them.
I was 28 years old, guys. Okay, don't get scared.
There we are, right on the TV Guide. Yeah. I love it. I love it.
It's funny because when I started working in TV, I had no interest in it at all.
Uh-huh.
I was so happy just being a parish priest, running my youth stuff. Yeah. I taught religion at several parochial schools and diocesan schools. I was involved in so many different things that I didn't want to know anything about television. And then the Archbishop says to me one day, the auxiliary bishop said, "Listen, I gave them your name. You better call over there." And I'm like, "Oh God." So I show up, and I didn't know they had interviewed 500 priests from throughout the country, bilingual, Latino background priests, really? Lots of them in Texas and California. How they ended up with the Cuban-American kid from Miami, I have no idea, but I can tell you this. I didn't know I was in an audition. They said I was going to a show, and I thought I was going to be a guest on a show, like I am this morning with you.
Yeah.
I said, okay, I can give my opinion about whatever. And then the lady says to me at the end of the interview, "Oh, Father, you're going to be the one." I said, "I'm going to be the one for what?" "Oh, don't worry, they're going to call you." Next week, I get a 20-page contract from Sony TriStar, which was they were the owners of Telemundo at the time.
Yeah.
And I go, "What is this?" And I start looking at it. So I talked to the Monsignor, who's my pastor. I said, "Monsignor, what do you think?" He said, "Go tell the Archbishop." So I go see the Archbishop. And I show up with this contract. And he looks at me and he says, "Albert," says, "if Jesus were here today, he'd probably need one of these things to talk to people." He gave me a blessing and he said, "Just don't let your head get big." And I said to him, "Archbishop, well, we have a problem." He says, "What?" He says, "I was born with a big head." So that's history, and that was 1998.
Wow. Yeah.
I was maybe 3 years a priest. Yeah, I was 3 years a priest.
Yeah.
Kind of still a rookie. And I've combined parish work with media work ever since.
Yeah. And you're now on a new channel. You just said at the beginning that.
Yes, I'm doing a radio program every day. It's called I guess the best in Spanish it's Hablando Claro con el Padre Alberto. I guess the best translation is plainly talking, plainly talking, or direct. It's kind of like boom.
Yeah.
Because I think that in today's world, when people watch media, we've had this whole fake news thing and everything like that.
Oh yeah.
People are fed up with beating around the bush. They want someone who's going to go straight, to the jugular. And that's what I try to do every day, whether it's a news story, whether it's something having to do with local politics. Today we dealt with a story that was very interesting. Here in Miami, a man goes up to the McDonald's window, to the drive-thru, and a young woman on the other side is giving him his coffee in a very kind, loving way. "Oh, thank you, sir," whatever. He was mad about the price of McDonald's going up. I think 2 cents higher than the week before. Yeah. He was a regular there. He grabbed the back of his hand and slapped the coffee out of her hand and totally burned the girl. Her arms are burned.
Oh my God.
Horrible. Because of the security cameras, they go after him. The guy gets arrested. And it's a felony charge.
Yeah.
It's serious.
Well,
but I was telling my listeners, what's happened to kindness in our society?
Civility.
What's happened to civility? What's happened to being cordial and kind and respectful of others? What's happened with giving way to the person, whether they're elderly or not, who puts on their signal light and is in a bad spot and needs to get through? What happened with letting people through? So we've, my listeners, they say to me, "Father, thank you for these topics, because nobody in radio and television talks about this anymore." I said, "Well, we will. In this show, we will." And we talk about these things.
We live in a culture that is so coarse and so impersonal and so disrespectful of one another's space and feelings. I think that everybody wants to blame it on Donald Trump, but it's way beyond that. It's just, and I'm not supporting Donald Trump.
But it's been with us forever.
Yeah. Right.
And we try to blame others for it, but the truth is we're to blame. We're the ones that are not doing what we need to do to make our society kinder, to make our society more cordial, more civil. We live in this polarized world, where liberals are always wrong, conservatives are always wrong. That's not true. Some of us are liberal, conservative, and sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong. And what we need to do is we need to come together, I think, and find common ground on so many things, because, I see so many families now that are divided along political lines.
Oh, yeah.
It's horrific.
Thanksgiving is a terrible
get together without having a fight about politics.
Right.
So I think that we need, as pastorally, as clergy and as lay leaders, we need to be sensitive to that reality. And I think that we need to be more and more welcoming of each other, even if our points of view don't always match. We need to be more welcoming of each other.
You know, I had a parishioner in a previous parish somewhere criticized me for not being more vocal about supporting Black Lives Matter, and you know, and I said, look, I said, I am not going to infect my homilies with partisan politics, and I said, whether it's that organization or any other organization, I said, we need to be. I preach the gospel.
Amen.
If I preach the
That's
gospel,
me.
Yeah, I know it. I know it is. That's why I was so drawn to you years ago. I mean, we speak the same language, and I said, if we live the gospel, and if you find that there's an organization that's promoting the wellness and welfare of other people, go for it. But it's not my job. My responsibility is not to tell you to give your allegiance to any particular organization. Yeah. My job is to lead you to the way that we can live together. Well, this has been wonderful.
Thank you.
I know, our friend is signaling me to sort of Ben's signaling me to sort of cut this off. So I can't wait. I can't wait to see you on where you coming on Friday or
Friday. I'll be there.
Good.
I'm going to show the family around beautiful Westerly, and I'm going to count on my friend Father Tony to tell me what we must see. Saturday, I hope to meet with the vestry.
Yeah.
And
I have a funeral. We planned a lunch for the vestry with you on Saturday at noon. I have a funeral on Friday at 11, and I have another one on Saturday at 12 noon. So I will miss the lunch, but that'll be a fun time for you. They have a great vestry.
We'll be together at the Vigil Eucharist, I'm sure. Yeah. A Saturday evening, and we'll be together on Sunday at the services, and we are going to have a forum.
That's right.
I do believe it's after the 10 a.m. Am I right?
10 a.m. That's after the 10 a.m. Right.
After the 10 a.m. service, we're going to have a forum where I'm not going to speak as much as I've spoken today.
Yeah.
I am going to say some things and throw them at you, but what I really welcome is for people to ask questions and for us to have a dialogue. I love that.
And we have I think we're making a reservation for several of us, including your family, for dinner on Saturday night.
Great.
And we're gonna commandeer a lot of your time, but I think you'll have.
What is, by the way, the favorite food of folks in Rhode Island?
Well, you know, you can't beat lobster or scallops, or you know, it's a lot of seafood up here, and and of course you can get just about anything. I'm always at home anywhere because I love lamb chops.
I'm a steak kind of guy myself.
Yeah, me too. You know, we went out the other night. I had 9 parishioners from my last parish in Niantic, Connecticut, came to the 5 o'clock service on Saturday night, and then we went out to dinner. And of course, it was wonderful to see them. It was our 46th wedding anniversary.
Wow!
Listen,
you look too young to be married that long.
I got married when I was 10. So
I know, I can tell.
I actually didn't get married till I was 27, and wasn't a father until I was 32. I have 3 daughters and a granddaughter. My granddaughter made me famous here, by the way. I know Ben's yelling at us for going too long. My granddaughter, I said in my first homily here as interim rector, I said, just to tell you a little bit about my preaching style, if at the end of my homily, I'm going to be thinking of my granddaughter, because she said to me one Sunday when I got home, she said, "Papa, you need to land the plane." I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "You came in for a landing 3 times in that sermon." So I said to the congregation, I said, "So now if I see anybody in the congregation flying like this, you know you're telling me I need to land the plane."
Listen, presiding Bishop Catherine Jeffers-Scory once came to the Episcopal Preaching Foundation where I was one of the professors. I was honored to be that summer, one of the professors. And I said to her, "Bishop Catherine, I have to be honest with you. I have never seen a better landing of the plane than that opening Eucharistic convention in Anaheim. I was honored to be there in 2009 for my first general convention with my wife. And I remember the bishop took us, and I went to that opening Eucharist. And it was at that time. Remember, we were going through the mission. What was it? The 5 categories of mission. Remember, we're doing it for a long time. And she landed the plane by doing this. I have never seen it so good. She used the image of a heartbeat. And she said, mission is at the heart of the church. And then she said this, can you hear it? And she went, mission, 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 mission. Almost like if it was a heartbeat.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I heard that, I thought, what a way to end a sermon. I mean, brilliant, brilliant. And she landed the plane.
Well, God bless you, my friend.
God bless you. See you this weekend, everyone.
That's good. Great.
Oh, so Father Tony, we gotta have a sign off of some kind.
Oh, am I still on?
You're still on, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, thank you very much for watching my first live interview with a guest, Father Albert. We here this weekend, and I'm thrilled. I'm a rookie with all this broadcasting, and I ended up having my first guest, a priest who had his picture on TV Guide when I was still in seminary. So it was a good beginning from the point of view that I couldn't ask for a better guest, and I look forward to having you tune in the future. We'll be talking with other interesting people and some interesting issues that we need to talk about as Christians. God bless you, and God bless all those people whose lives are closely linked to yours. Amen.
Thanks for watching. Did you know that you can join Christ Church from anywhere in the world? If you're feeling connected to what we're doing, email us today at communicate@christchurchwesterly.org.